Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about Even Stevens. Now, this show right here takes me back to back when I was a teen. I was in the 11th grade. When I say this show takes me back, boy, this show takes me back. It was simpler times back in the year 2000, and this is when the show came out in the year 2000. And oh man, when I say it was simpler times and people knew peace, oh, they knew peace. And then a year later, 2001, came the year of basically panic with Y2K and then 9/11. Ever since then, this country has never known peace. But if you lived during this time and you used to watch Even Stevens, you know it was good times. This is one of the all-time best Disney Channel original series, and it's one of the first coming out in the Zoog Disney era. This was probably trying to think. I debate. Like, it's either my second or third favorite Disney Channel show. I always switch between this and Jessie. Wizards will always be my favorite. I love like magical stuff, wands, witchcraft, stuff like that, and its goofy nature. But honestly, after rewatching this, I'm gonna put this at number two, being my favorite and stuff, because like this was just like an awesome show. It was a sitcom. In fact, I believe this might have been Disney Channel's very first sitcom formatted type show, no laugh track and everything. Because before this, you had shows like The Jersey, and you had like So Weird, and you also had The Famous Jet Jackson. Now, The Famous Jet Jackson was kind of a sitcom, but it felt more like a drama. At least from the episodes I've seen. I regret never watching The Jersey or The Famous Jet Jackson. They are on YouTube, and I have to watch those one day because I'm very curious now, because they're not on Disney Plus for some weird and bizarre reason. And this, I consider this like cause there's this one pre-Disney Channel show, and I say pre because Disney Channel wasn't established yet, and Disney hasn't really named it its brand. It was kind of just there, and this was before the Zoog Disney era. But when it comes to Even Stevens, it's like every once in a while comes that really, really like hilarious and serious at the same time Disney Channel show that stands the test of time. And this show really does stand the test of time. Like, it's on Disney Plus, and if you watch it, it is just hilarious. Even if it wasn't on Disney Channel, they could have put it on ABC, and it would have fit very well, in my opinion. However, of course, with the ABC Disney shows, they were a bit more serious, and like even though they were comedies, they was a bit more serious, and they had the whole moral lesson of the day thing, very Full House and Family Matters. I think this would have fit in very well like with Family Matters and stuff. Now, if you watch this show in the first couple of episodes, it's really different from the rest of the series. The show lasted for 3 seasons, a total of like 65 episodes. That was the mandate for Disney Channel back in the day. And so no matter what, once they hit that threshold, they had to like stop. Even though the show was still extremely popular and had high ratings and stuff. But like back to that ABC Disney like sitcoms and this show, you can kind of see in the beginning it mirrored that, because when you watch maybe the first 6 episodes or so, The premise seemed to focus primarily around that of the Lewis character, his trials and tribulations at school, things he was dealing with, and his sister. While those two can't get along, she felt more like a supporting character along with the rest of the family. And she didn't have that big of a prominent type role. But then after a while, they switched it up. And this became Disney Channel's like pretty much first like brother sister duo show. Because if you ever watch Disney Channel, then you know for a fact they primarily focus on the sister, the female character. This was due to Lizzie McGuire. After Lizzie McGuire was like the gold mine, they and everything, and her show became pretty much like the standard for Disney Channel. Like it was like Lizzie McGuire was like the blueprint. However, I like to think that even Stevens is the architect and everything. And that's really what the show was. Like the show had pre Lizzie McGuire days. It had a brother and sister who could not get along. It had like wacky, quirky humor in it. Parents that barely show up and everything. And it was pretty much the architect of what you would see going later on in Disney Channel. But like I said before, those earlier episodes really focused more on Lewis, and it felt more like a dramedy than anything else, a mix between a drama and a comedy. And it wasn't until after those couple of episodes that it started to feel more like a Disney Channel type show. It focused on the brother sister duo. It was a whole lot more wackier. The jokes were funnier. And it didn't feel weighed down by the drama or that melodrama that it had in those first couple of episodes. And that's because back in the earlier Disney Channel days, they were a bit more serious and stuff. They felt more like dramas. Now, this show will be one of the last shows to ever film on location. Pretty much after this, every Disney Channel show would film on a like studio stage and everything. And every once in a while, a Disney Channel show would film on location. But it took a long time for them to start filming on location again. But for the most part, Disney Channel likes working on the stage. I love it when they film on location. It feels more real. This show feels real at times. The house on the outside is a real house that you can actually go to and everything. It still kind of looks the same. Now, the inside of the house, I believe that was a stage. Now, the show was a combination of like real locations and that of like stage work and stuff. It was the second Disney Channel show to ever get a movie based on this show, but it was the first Disney Channel original movie. That's a little confusing because, see, here's the thing. This show came out before Lizzie McGuire. But Lizzie McGuire changed the whole playing field of Disney Channel. So much so that when Lizzie McGuire got a movie in 2003, it was theatrical. Even Stevens, however, it got the Disney Channel movie treatment where it aired on television. And it came out second because Lizzie McGuire came out a month before. But for whatever reason, they didn't want to put it in theatrical. Now, when you watch the Even Stevens movie, which I will cover in a separate video, it's good, but like, it doesn't really feel Even Stevens. They tried to capitalize on the reality TV that was the early 2000s and stuff. And it just feels a little off. It's funny and it's hilarious, but it doesn't really feel like Even Stevens for the most part. But this was like, ah man, like when I think about this show and I think about the past, like I remember like I had just graduated high school. I'm like, oh no, I can't watch Even Stevens no more because it's like a kid's show. Man, the first week of school, of college, I walk around like the dorms. People had their doors open watching Even Stevens. I kid you not. And I'm like, yes, I can still watch it. Even though I'm an adult now, I can still watch this show. And like, I remember coming home from like college during like winter break. It's New Year's and stuff. And this is when they started doing like the marathon for like Disney Channel shows. I will watch like this show, Lizzie McGuire, That's So Raven, all the way up to midnight and past midnight. It was just a fun time just sitting in front of the television with the family, on New Year's Eve, waiting for the new year to come in and watching like Disney Channel shows. That was truly back in the good old days of Disney Channel. Then all the Hannah Montana crap started happening. And just kind of, I don't know, it just went in a different direction. It went into a more nutty kind of direction with a lot of the Disney Channel shows. Because for this show, this was like Disney Channel era. This was still Zoo Disney. And Zoo Disney, they really didn't have no themes for their show. So weird. The Jersey and the famous Jet Jackson was really the only ones to have a theme, but this one didn't have it. And then after, like, starting with That So Raven, then Disney Channel started to give like themes to their show and to their protagonists, or main star, I should say. Like psychics, music stars, wizards, a nanny, stuff like that. Or a dog who has a blog. And so, like, I was trying to think. Oh, yes. So, like I said before, this show was one of the first to do a lot of things. Now, sadly, just like every Disney Channel show, it had problems behind the scenes, but nobody knew until about 20 years later. Like, the two lead stars could not get along on screen, and also they could not get along off screen. And even still to this day, they still have not spoken to each other. Even though one of them, Shyla, met Christie's husband and wished her well, but still hasn't spoken to her. And not only that, but apparently there were drama going further behind the scenes with one of the stars that even the cast really didn't know to the full extent. They knew something was kind of up with the behavior of Shyla, but they didn't know what the heck happened until he came out with Honey Boy, when the whole world found out what his life was really like behind the scenes of Even Stevens. And I mean, even to the point where the moms are like, yo, if she would have known, she like the TV show mom, like if she would have known, she would have rescued him and everything. And not only that, but sadly, this show was one of the first Disney Channel shows that have former Disney Channel stars fall from that of grace. And not only that, but the two lead stars, sadly, that old phrase like former Disney Channel stars gone bad. Yeah, this show was probably like the first to do that, with Shia LaBeouf being the original Disney Channel bad boy and everything. Both him and Christy, they've had their problems like post Disney Channel. She has managed to clean herself up, thank God. Him, on the other hand, is dicey and everything. Like, for now, he's doing good, but there's something people forgot about and everything. And so, not only that, But like, however, this show did the first thing that many other Disney show channel shows didn't do. It launched its main star into stardom. Shia LaBeouf might just be the most famous former Disney Channel star like ever. Like, I will put him over that of Hilary Duff and Miley Cyrus because this man has been in a lot of huge movies and stuff. Not all of them are good. His acting performance and some of them weren't that great and everything, especially in the earlier days. But like, Hilary Duff, her movie career kind of flopped after a while, the way she went into music. And same thing happened with Miley Cyrus and Selena Gomez. Their movie careers kind of flopped as well, and then they all went into music. And of course, Miley Cyrus became probably, she's known as like, the most famous and also with music and stuff like that. But in my opinion, Demi Lovato can sing a million times better than her. Miley Cyrus has the benefit of being a Nepo baby and a very famous father who's used to do music and stuff. So that gave her that leg up. Also, Hannah Montana was just everywhere. So that gave her a major boost and everything. I still feel Demi Lovato is like the better singer and and stuff like that. But it's just funny because like all the female Disney Channel stars, they've tried to do the whole movie thing and it just flopped, like, and then they went into music. Jenna Ortega, however, even her movie career is starting to fall a little bit because a lot of the movies she does are starting to get mid to like negative reviews. The Scream movies are pretty much the only good thing she had going for her movie wise and everything, but she still has that Wednesday television show. Thank God for that, even though she complains a lot about that show. The girl sounds so ungrateful and everything. But I truly believe Shia LaBeouf is the biggest movie star, former Disney Channel star to come from the Disney Channel show era and stuff. And when it comes to this show, not only like was he the first to hit mainstream movie stardom, but this show like was the first to do like a lot of things. It had like an abundance of like diversity and everything. For a show that is where the main stars are like white and everything with a white family, the show had a lot of recurring black stars. It also had two Asian stars to guest star and everything. Now, even though it had diversity, that doesn't necessarily mean that those black stars had a lot to do in the show. This was the year 2000, after all, in the early 2000s. So because the show had a big cast, so they would spread everybody out. And sometimes you would kind of forget, like, hey, what happened to the black people? And everything. But then it became to the point where they really never had no true solo episodes. And if they do, it was always tied into like another white star. Now, of course, the famous Jet Jackson was Disney Channel's first black like family show and everything. That was probably the biggest diversity they ever had on Disney Channel until That's So Raven showed up. However, like, even Stevens is also, and I mean, it is the only Disney Channel show to break some rules. Like, I don't know if they intentionally tried to break rules or if Disney Channel just didn't have no set rules at that time. Because even Stevens is the only Disney Channel show to use a curse word. Yes, only one time. Even if you watch it on Disney Plus now, they still let that curse word air and everything. I am still shocked every time I hear that word. So basically, the way they was able to get around that is they didn't actually use the actual word of curse. They actually used the nickname of a donkey and everything. So Tawny who's like the female friend of Lewis, he was being kind of like a jerk, and instead of calling him a donkey, she straight up called him a jackass, which is the nickname of a donkey. And this is how a lot of cartoons like Looney Tunes were able to get away with using a curse word, because they just called the nickname of like a donkey and everything. And every time I hear that, it just blows my mind that they cursed on Disney Channel. Not only that, but they're the only Disney Channel show to show alcohol. See, there's a scene in the third season where, like, the parents are away, so Lewis decides to turn his home into like a bread and breakfast. When the parents get like a phone call and they rush back home, the dad is upset, and you can see him having like a wine, not wine, but a champagne glass, and you can see like a green bottle, but you can't see the full green bottle. You can only see like the nozzle part, and him points the wine glass, not wine glass, but the champagne glass was whatever liquid's in there and back into like the bottle, and that's alcohol and stuff, because champagne is alcohol, and that green bottle is very distinct. Not only that, but they show the illusion of nudity on this show. So in the third season, like, Lewis is on the swim team, and after he got out the water, unbeknownst to him, his shorts are off, and everybody in the rafters can see that, and in the bleachers and stuff. And you don't see his nude body because it's covered up. But once he realizes, he just scampers off. And it's just kind of like, it's the illusion of nudity in Disney Channel. That's insane. That is crazy. These three things I named would never fly with Disney Channel in the modern day. And not only that, but some characters had some really weird names that were like allusions to like other things, like Coach Tugnut. Yes, that was the coach's last name, and they said it a lot. And of course, Tugnut, you can probably guess what that's alluding to. Then there is Tom Valvolsky and everything, and how he was able to have that last name. And every once in a while, they would say the last name. And it's just kind of like, how in the world did they get away with this? This show was also one of the first Disney Channel shows to have famous people guest star on the show. There are multiple, well, not really multiple. It's a small number. It's about 4 to 5, maybe 6 to 7 really famous people that you might not be aware of, like, who guest starred on this show. And like they are like famous too, okay? But sadly, 2 of them have passed away and everything. I'll get into that a little bit later. But this show was the first to do like a lot of things. Now, one thing that's really unique about this show is that in the earlier season, like season 1 primarily, in the first couple episodes, they would sped up the camera. And I remember hearing the commentary one time that this took forever to film these scenes that were like sped up, which is weird because, you know, you have to like do everything in regular motion, and then you have to speed the camera up. And of course, when they had like a lot of things sped up, it just happens in a couple of seconds. But, you know, you have to film it over and over and over in normal speed, and it's a long sequence, and they literally say that took forever. This is also one of the first Disney Channel shows that actually show a person actually really driving, like not a green screen. And this is really unique because normally in a Disney Channel show, it's a green screen, or you never see nobody drive, period. This is the only Disney Channel show to have a claymation stop motion intro. The intro is beyond like anything I've ever seen in terms of a Disney Channel show, because I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and they will always have us watch like those Christmas specials with like Rudolph and Santa and claymation and stuff, stop motion. So I was used to seeing that. But I was not used to seeing that in 2000s, and I'm not even used to seeing it while when rewatching it and stuff, because like you just don't see stop motion claymation no more. Really, it's like a relic of the time, and that was the intro, and it helped make the intro even more like unique. And the intro really does show what the family is like. You have the older brother working out, you have the parents doing the parent stuff, and then you have the two kids being pissed at each other and like fighting each other with like lightsabers and fighting over the remote and TV guide and other stuff. Now you can see some actual real people in the TV guide. It's one of the posters for this show with the two main stars. So that was kind of cool that they did implement like some live action people in this stop motion claymation thing. It was also probably the first Disney Channel show to have a bully primarily in the show. Normally Disney Channel doesn't have bullies that be like recurring characters and stuff, but this one surely did. Also, there are two pilots. There's an unaired pilot, and then there's the actual on-screen like theatrical, I guess you could call it, pilot and stuff. The unaired pilot actually still aired, but they found the clever way to implement it. See, originally, this show's family had a different last name, and you can hear it in the unaired pilot episode. So basically, it's kind of like a flashback episode. And in the modern day, the kids are like, a bit older, and then they start reminiscing about something that happened in the past. And then you get flashbacks of like, the unaired pilot. And they're so young in that. And not only are they so young, but like they have a completely different last name, which they had to edit in like ADR. And you can tell because the mouth movement just doesn't match up. Now, of course, this is Disney Plus, and the episodes, at least in the first two seasons, are out of order. And it's get really confusing, especially with Ren braces and stuff, because there are some episodes you'll watch and she has like no braces. Then all of a sudden she has braces again, and then all of a sudden she's talking about getting them removed. Disney Plus, they could care less. This show is also famous for having a musical episode, and it might just be the very first musical Disney Channel has ever done for one of their shows. It was Influenza, and I remember I recorded a lot of the musical notes and stuff like that. And the reason for it is because a lot of their stars had training in like Broadway, musical, dance, stuff like that, Like the guy who plays Tugnut, I think he's the one who wrote all the lyrics for all the songs and everything, because he has a background in that. And of course, Christy Carson Romano would go on to like Broadway and stuff like that. And it was just like a really cool episode. And, if it wasn't for that musical episode, because I think somebody at first wasn't sure about it. It was either Disney Channel, Brockwell, or just somebody, or Matt McNamara. It was somebody that just wasn't sure about it. But it later paved the way for things like High School Musical, Hannah Montana, That's So Raven, and stuff like that. So, Even Stevens was created by Mac Dearborn, and they used the Burkwell McNamara Entertainment Company to make the show. Now, Matt would go on to produce the show of The Secret Life of Alex Max, and Zeke and Luther. Zeke and Luther. Matt has a habit of casting bad boys in his show that later on get arrested and go to jail. So, Even Stevens is about a family named the Stevens. But originally that wasn't their name. See, originally I can't remember what season this is because they aired out of order. But it's the episode first week. And in that episode is basically Lewis, not doing very well in PE and stuff. And not only that, but the show had a completely different title and they had a completely different last name. I can't pronounce this. It's Spivey. I think that's what their last name at first. And the show was originally called Spivey's Kid Brother. And so it's just so I can't even pronounce that. I'm so glad they changed it to Stevens. And so, like I said before, it used to focus primarily on Lewis and everything. And you'll have probably Ren come in and kind of sometimes give him moral support or sometimes come in and save the day like an older big sister, but he would get on her nerves. And I think Christy Carson Romano said that they saw the chemistry between her and Shyla, bickering and stuff like that, that the whole format of the show pretty much got changed to the brother-sister duo of because the thing about Even Stevens, the show is set between two protagonists, which is kind of odd because normally it's just one. And so it's Lewis and Ren. Lewis is the younger kid brother who is a goofball. He's always getting in trouble. He pulls pranks. He doesn't take nothing seriously. And he just loves getting on his sister's nerves. Ren is the second child. She is the perfect A student, like a teacher's pet. She takes everything seriously and everything, and Lewis gets on her nerves. And so that's what this show later morphed into. But they have a third sibling, Donnie, who's the older brother who's in high school and he's really good at sports. So you have the one who's really athletic, you have one that's a brainchild, and then you have one that's the slacker and everything. Typical family tropes and stuff. And they live in California. The father's a lawyer whose name is Steven Stevens. I said they had weird names on this show. And then they have the mom, Elaine, who is a senator. And so, even though that's the premise of the show, the brother and sister can't get along and this and that, when you watch this show, and this is before Christy let people know what was happening behind the scenes, when you watch this show, no matter how many times you watch it, you start to realize one thing. Lewis and Ren, after a couple of episodes of the first season, they rarely interact with each other. The whole thing, because if you watched this back in the day when I did, and Disney Channel always promote their stuff, and the thing they always promote is that the brother and the sister just cannot get along with each other. But then when you start to watch the rest of the show, you start to realize the brother and the sister don't like being in the same room. They rarely interact. And the whole premise of him getting on her nerves kind of just faded away to where both characters just did their own thing off screen. On screen. And so you'll have him with his group of friends and you'll have her with her group of friends, and they will be going through their own storylines and stuff, and A and B storylines. Sometimes mostly hers started to be the A storyline and his started to be the B. But every once in a while, his will be an A and hers will be the B storyline. And it's just kind of odd. I remember watching back in the day, and every time you watch through a rerun, it's kind of like, why? If this is supposed to be the brother-sister duo where they get on each other's nerves, then why aren't the brother and sister interacting with each other? Well, that is because Christy Carson Romano revealed that her and Shia LaBeouf could not get along in real life. And so, like, I think the thing that she said that he would be mean to her sometimes, and he threw something at her. I think it was a tomato or something. I forget what it was. He threw something at her, she said. I think it was a tomato and everything. And she said when he threw it at her, because he was supposed to throw it, 'cause I think that was how it was scripted. She said he threw it a little too hard and stuff like that. And not only that, but what really caused the big rift was some type of acceptance speech. They was somewhere, I think an award show or something like that, and he had won, and the whole cast was there at the table. He made sure he thanked everybody at that table except for her. And that hurt her. And still to this day, she says she still feels hurt by that. Because she always felt like for whatever reason, he just never liked her and stuff. Now, if you ever paid attention to their lives after Disney Channel, which for her, she pretty much kept her life secret. And it wasn't until she had a YouTube channel she started to explain more things about herself. Shia, on the other hand, he was all in the news for all the wrong reasons and stuff. And because he has a criminal background and stuff, always getting arrested in a different mugshot. I don't know who has more mug shots, him or like Lindsay Lohan. Like, seriously. Now, hers became public. His is hard to find and everything. I can only find one of his mug shots and stuff. But the dude has been like literally arrested for multiple times, and a lot of people didn't know necessarily why. They just assumed, okay, he's a former child star, so he's going bad. But then when you watch Honey Boy, you kind of know why he is the way he is. And so that made people give him an excuse. I gave him that excuse a long time ago, but his last bad thing he did, I can't give him no excuse for. Like, there's a point in time when you know right from wrong, and you can't constantly blame everything on substance abuse and everything. Because the last thing he allegedly did, that's a doozy and everything. And it actually happened not too long ago. They were supposed to go to court for it in 2025, but something happened. It either got dismissed or it was settled out of court. I can't remember which one. And normally when things are settled out of court, there's normally a guilty party and everything. And so the thing about him is that he came from a very abusive family, primarily just his father. He got along very well with his mother, but like when you watch Honey Boy, you will start to see just how bad his dad was and everything. And Shia literally became his worst enemy and stuff. Like normally when you have an abusive parent, you hope not to become that person, but he did end up becoming that person. You know, he has a problem with substance, or had at least. I think he's clean now. He had a problem with like drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. So did Christy and everything. But she turned her life around, and he still has demons and stuff. And you know, honest to God, when it comes to this show, the show wasn't just a means for him to be on TV and be famous and get some money. If you watch Honey Boy, you know being on Even Stevens and making it in Hollywood was survival for him. Like he had to book that show and everything. Because I remember reading, and I still can't believe this. It's so funny because they even tell the story on like a podcast one time. When they did like a reunion thing, he wasn't there, but he didn't have an agent. So he would call up like these studios or whatnot. And I think he didn't have an agent. And he would pretend to be like his own manager or agent or something like that. I think he was pretending to be his manager because he was trying to get booked in the agency and everything. And as a teeny tiny little kid, like, no more than 11 or 13 or something, he would fake a British accent. Trying to get himself hooked on like an agency and stuff. And of course, they knew that he wasn't really British and he sounded like a kid, but they liked his moxie. And so they hired him anyways. And I remember reading about this, like he had to do multiple auditions for Even Stevens, and I think at one point he didn't get the part, and I think they said like he just burst into tears and nearly had like a nervous breakdown. I think begging like to be on the show or clenching on the one of them or something like that. And they gave him a chance and he got booked on the show. And thank God he got booked on the show because as much as I love this show and as much as I love like the Ren character, Lewis is really what made this show the defining thing that made this show. You know what I'm saying? Like Shia LaBeouf was a comedic genius with the way he would do line delivery, his smirk, his laughing, the thing where he would take his finger and put it in his mouth and pull up his upper lip and everything. And it was just comedic gold. However, I read that he was actually difficult on set, not even just to Christy, but to the point that where he would get frustrated. He didn't want to memorize his lines. Some scenes he didn't want to do, and the creative team had to work around his behavioral issues and stuff. Like something about when he'll put his hands, like he will fold his arms and put his hands in between his armpits, that would indicate something, but I forget what. And they had to start giving him less dialogue and everything. And this is when the show kind of started to be a bit more about the Ren character and stuff, and where his storylines become like the B plot. And I remember sometimes in those later seasons, like when he would just pop up in the show and they'll have his storyline, he would rarely be there and stuff, and he would rarely say anything. And I always wonder, like, what's going on with the character? Is it just they're trying to give like the sister more stuff to do, or like what exactly is going on? But then of course, you find out behind the scenes and you're like, oh, okay. Now there's one line that the Lewis character gives to Beans that I don't know if the creators and the writers truly knew what happened and everything, but like there's a scene where Lewis used to be, he once competed in like this child like pageant type thing, right? And he lost. And so, or maybe he won, I can't remember. I think he lost. And so Beans, he wants Beans to like be a part of it, but Beans doesn't want to do it, but he convinces Beans to do it anyway. And so like you later find out, cause Beans even figures this out. He's all like, are you like living your life through me by being in this pageant thing? And he's all like, yes, Beans, yes, I'm living my life through you and everything. And it's the way he said it. He said it with such a stone cold face and a serious face that it comes off as silly and funny because it's supposed to be a humorous thing, but he says it in such a monotone, straight, stone cold kind of way. And now, after knowing about his father, you can kind of tell what that line really meant to him. Because when you find out more stuff about his father, because his father and his mother was in show business as well. But like, when it comes to his father, it's like you can clearly tell after watching Honey Boy that his father was living his life through Shyla and everything. Like that's the way it really seems and stuff. And his father actually makes a cameo in one of the episodes. He's the older guy with gray hair. I think when this is when they was forming a band, and not Shy, but Lewis' character was mad at Twitty for whatever reason, and Ren, and they was looking for new people to fill in, and so there's this older guy who's dressed like a hippie and everything, which I think Shyla said his parents were hippies and stuff, and like so he makes a cameo in that. And one time I read something that happened on set with his father. I don't know if this is real or not, but for whatever reason, his father couldn't be on set no more. I don't know if that's true or not. That article, I haven't been able to find that article in a long time, and I don't know if it's true or not. But yeah, if you just go, like, I don't know where Honey Boy is now online. I first watched it on Amazon Prime. Go watch that. Like, it will explain a lot about Shia LaBeouf's like upbringing and this and that. Because him and his dad, they stayed in a motel when filming Even Stevens, and apparently the cast and crew never knew this. And it wasn't the best type of motel. Well, no motel is the best type of motel, but there was a lot of things going on at that motel that Shy was exposed to and everything, and no child should ever be exposed to. And it's just kind of like, man, the world never knew what this young boy was going through as a child and a teenager on this Disney Channel show. It will blow your mind and it will break your heart when you watch Honey Boy and stuff. And so, like I said before, because of that, it gave a lot of people sympathy for Shiloh when he was constantly getting arrested and being on the news, because they're kind of like, oh, okay, this is because of his upbringing, this is because of substance abuse and stuff like that. But after a while, you can't keep giving that same excuse for him and stuff, especially when you know what the last thing he was accused of. Because that's a doozy, like I said before. And this was also the first Disney Channel show to get like the podcast treatment during the pandemic in the 2020s and stuff. Because Christy Carson Romano, her husband, started this thing called Podco. And they started, like, it was, it was her, the brother who played Donnie, and Beans. They all started reminiscing about the show and started, recapping the show and stuff like that, and things that happened behind the scenes. And this led to many other former Disney Channel and Nickelodeon shows getting the Podco treatment, along with that of Full House. Wizards got it. Ned Declassified got it. The Lawrence brothers got it. And also the Full House people and stuff like that. But then during the writer's strike, they decided, to pay respect to, the writers not getting paid and stuff like that. They will put their show on hiatus and come back after it's done. After it was done, none of the shows really came back. I think the Pretty Little Liars one came back, but then, and also the Ned Declassified, but then something happened when Podco shut down. Nobody knows why. Christy Carson Romano has not explained why. And so that's the end of the Even Stevens podcast. However, the Lawrence brothers and the Ned Declassified people have just decided to continue it on their own YouTube channels. Not sure why the other people have not. If this was through a company, most likely they got paid. And if they're just doing it for free, most likely they're not. Now, over 20 years later, during the pandemic, when a lot of people were doing reunions on Zoom and stuff like that, Even Stevens had one. And everybody showed up except for a few people. Shyla did not show up. The actor who played Larry, the actor who played Nilsson, and the actress who played what's the cheerleader name who's perky? Monique. They did not show up and stuff. Oh, also the actor who played Tom, and let's see, the mom didn't show up, and Tawny did not show up. That's mainly the entire cast. And everything. Like, that's like half of the cast. But it was cool getting to see them again, especially older now, especially Beans. Beans is so grown up now with a beard and everything. And like when it comes to this show, they had no crossover with any other Disney Channel show. Not only that, but their shows never made it to DVD. Disney Channel doesn't do the whole DVD thing with their shows. Only certain ones, like there are no volumes. That's normally what Disney Channel revolves around. They'll put out a couple of like DVDs out on volume with a couple of episodes in them. Even Stevens never got that treatment. Like Wizards got that treatment. I think That's So Raven and Kim Possible. However, Lizzie McGuire also got that treatment, but Lizzie McGuire also got a full first season release on DVD, or at least half of the season and stuff. Even Stevens, no such luck. But their movie is on DVD, so you can get that. I don't know if it's out of print now. You might have to get a used copy on Amazon or eBay. Now, the entirety of the show is uploaded on Disney Plus, all 3 seasons, but like I said before, they are out of order. Also, the movie is on Disney Plus. So I can't really think of nothing else like, behind the scenes or like the premise of like, the show or nothing like that. So I will get into character bios. Alright, I'm gonna cap the video off right here because it got a little too long. And I'll have part 2 up very soon. Alrighty, well I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.